Yeah, good afternoon. I'm really excited to be here for a start, and thank you to Tom for inviting me to come and speak. I'm also very excited to have one of these little lapel mics, which I find equally exciting almost. Yes, as Tom said, I teach life drawing. That's kind of my primary occupation, and then otherwise I'm a professional painter. My interest in life drawing kind of goes beyond just sort of, kind of a teaching capacity. I think there's a philosophy which underpins drawing practice, which I think is something that is sort of important to spread out to the world. And I'm sort of making it my mission to kind of evangelize everyone I come into contact with in drawing practice. My talk today is about how we can use drawing, sort of putting pencil to paper, as a way of rediscovering a sense of wonder in the world, and hence the optimistic sort of look forward to the future. I've mostly kind of written it all down, because otherwise I have a tendency of just going on and on and on. So I'm going to be glancing at this quite a lot. It's not because I don't know what I'm talking about. It's mostly because I want to talk about it far more than time allows. You'll also notice you've all got some paper and some pencils sort of under your chairs or on top of your chairs. We're going to be doing a practical activity at the end of my talk. So hold fire if anyone's sort of started scribbling now. You'll need all 3 bits of paper, but I'll explain what they're about kind of as my talk continues. So have them on your lap, have them ready. If you haven't got a pencil or something, put your hand up now. No, great, fantastic. Okay, if you need a rubber, if you need a sharpener, they're at the end of the row. I'll explain in a moment. Okay, so my talk. Firstly, as children, the world is a marvel. And as we kind of move into adulthood, we replace that sort of sense of wonderment with a casual interest and often just a familiar apathy about a lot of the world. Recently, I ran a drawing event up in London. It was free. Anyone could sort of drop in off the streets. And it involved a kind of costumed figure drawing session. And we had all ages in. And at one point in the session, we had kind of predominantly sort of children, so 4 years old up to maybe 8 or 9 years old. And they're sitting there, sort of pencil and paper in hand. And the model goes to kind of strike a pose. And I just sort of say to all the kids, so does anyone need a hand with any of the difficult bits, with the kind of faces or hands? And it was just a unanimous, no, we're fine. And they just started scribbling. They started drawing straight away. Wonderful. That's a question I ask to all of my adult students. Whenever I get a new student into the class, I sort of say that. And almost all the time, they'll say, yes, I need some help. I'm not very good at drawing faces. I'm not very good at drawing feet or people in general. And it just goes to show that really the fact is kids can draw. Kids can paint. Sort of all children do this. And they can tackle subject matter that as children, they convince themselves they can't even begin to approach. And so basically, the inability to draw is a learnt response to a challenge that adults feel they're poorly equipped to deal with. So drawing and visual communication skills are given a low priority in our education system. Our visual vocabularies, our sort of knowledge of the grammar of drawing, remains underdeveloped whilst our sort of verbal vocabularies continue to grow. And many of us lose confidence and sort of become sensitive to criticisms of our drawing practice. So maybe kind of as a child, sort of early to late childhood, sort of early teenagehood or something, a negative comment from a peer or a teacher or a parent or something can just kill your enjoyment of drawing. It'll make you think, I'm inadequate, I'm sort of subject to this judgment. I'm seeing some nodding from the audience, that's fantastic. It was awful, it's terrible in a way that we're so easily knocked at that age. And the worst thing is that you stop drawing at 12 years old, chances are you'll never pick up a pencil again. Or, maybe it'll take you 30 years to kind of get beyond that sort of self-consciousness about engaging with a creative process like drawing. So some of us are lucky. I mean, I was lucky to gain sort of a little bit of tuition, a little bit of encouragement, at just the right stage that kind of, can help you get past that sensitive period. And you can kind of get through teenagehood with that love of drawing and that sort of confidence in the creative process intact. But really us that, kind of get to kind of continue that into adulthood, we're in the minority. So, I mean, initially, the education system needs to change. There's an excellent TED talk by Sir Ken Robinson on sort of creativity and education. I'd definitely check it out, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. What I want to say to you all now is to kind of something to give you, something to look forward to, something optimistic about the future, and that's that we all have the ability to kind of re-engage with drawing practice, to sort of regain your creativity and do something that will literally let you see the world through completely new eyes. So why am I sort of urging you all to draw? Okay, there are sort of four main reasons. Okay, one, drawing isn't just for artists in the same way that writing isn't just for novelists. It's a tool for communication. It directly represents visual information, and it crosses language barriers. It promotes creative thinking. There are a lot of benefits to the kind of communication sort of through drawing. Sounds like I'm sort of trying to sell drawing as sort of I'm not just trying to flog my classes. If you can draw, you can understand the language of the visual world. So this is number two. We live in a visual society. TV, the internet, kind of magazines. They're all primarily really visual mediums, even though they kind of contain literary elements. We're being bombarded with this visual information all the time. And if we can learn to understand the visual world better, we can sort of, as a society and as individuals, improve our sort of visual literacy so that we're better equipped to deal with this information that we're being fed all the time. So it's empowering. To learn to draw requires a learning to sort of engage with the visual world. That learning to engage with the visual world will help us unpick this visual information that we're being bombarded with, and it'll just make us that much better equipped to deal with it and to not be sort of subject to sort of visual influences that we kind of don't understand. Okay, three is an important one. It's quite good fun, drawing. A lot of kind of people do classes for relaxation. I don't know why, because it's difficult and it's frustrating at times. It's engaging, but it's enjoyable, and it makes for a very good sort of therapy. If you take a couple of hours, just sort of once a week, to look at a tiny corner of existence in order to draw it, if you sort of practice rendering the lines of a surface with the earnest concentration it requires to make a drawing, it's like a form of meditation. It's amazing. You kind of you can't think of anything else while you're doing it for a start, because there's so much to concentrate on that tiny area of existence. And at the end of those sort of 2 hours or something, you'll have made something. And that tiny act of creation that sort of each drawing represents, I think it really sort of fulfills a really profound human need to create that a lot of us have missing from our lives. And I suppose the fourth sort of most important thing, in my opinion, is that it will change your way of seeing the world forever. I had someone recently that kind of came to a week-long block of sessions they hadn't drawn since they were about 8 years old. And at the end of the kind of 5-day block of sessions, they kind of came to me and said, they said, when am I going to stop seeing the world like this? They said, sort of, at the end of these 5 weeks, I just see patterns everywhere, and it's making me go a bit mad. And I said, well, it's never going to stop. Actually, now you said, I'm sorry, you're going to take this to your grave, this knowledge of the world. But I said, learn to marvel in it. It's wonderful. What you're doing is you're seeing the world anew, and it's kind of it's starting to fire your brain up, and you're starting to see things in a completely new way. So I mean, just think about it. You look at the world all day. We engage with the world in a very visual way. Unless you live in a particularly peripatetic existence, you'll mostly see the same things every day, the same people, the same places, the same objects. And over time, you'll have developed schemas to sort of describe these places, these situations. And those schemas will sort of stop us having to specifically process all the visual information that we kind of receive every day, stop us being kind of overloaded by it. But that will kind of foster a certain kind of contempt through familiarity. So we won't be sort of seeing the world fresh. We'll be kind of just thinking that we know what we're already going to see. Most of us are like that most of the time, sort of relying on our expectations of what we see without really looking at the world. When people say they can't draw, what they really mean is they can't see. Anyone can kind of make marks on a piece of paper. I'm going to demonstrate that in a minute. But through learning to draw, you learn to engage with the world around you. You learn to break down your preconceptions about what you're seeing and see the world as it really is. So if you persevere with this sort of journey of discovery through drawing, it will lead to, a literal epiphany about the visual world around you. So you're learning to draw again, as I've suggested, you'll leave here and kind of quickly take up a pen. What would you expect to actually happen? So say you started sort of drawing portraits maybe, doodling faces. I'd sort of recommend something like that because engaging with human faces is something we do all the time. We're sensitive to lightness and expression, so it's a good place to start. And like I said earlier, most adults are frightened of drawing faces. They find it kind of daunting. And start with what frightens you, because once you've learnt to draw a human face, everything else is comparatively easy. As you sort of start drawing regularly, you'll start to look at people sort of day to day, even when you're not drawing, in a different way. You'll become tuned into how our features are arranged, and you'll start to understand some of the elements of kind of the face and the figure that actually make us who we are. You'll start to analyse people you've known all your life, and you'll see them in a completely different way. You'll see them completely fresh. I drew my little brother for a birthday card the other day. Apart from kind of going through the drawing and thinking, gosh, he's got a really big nose. I'm glad I didn't inherit that. I realised I'd never really looked at his face properly because, I'd sort of never taken the time to sit down and draw him. And it encourages a new form of looking at whatever it is you're drawing that you otherwise mostly don't experience unless you spend a lot of time staring without doing much else, which usually doesn't help you too much socially. So drawing's a good excuse for staring. It's another thing. People kind of criticise or kind of apprehend you less often in cafes and things if you're doodling rather than just staring at someone else. So you persevere further with drawing, with sort of drawing all elements of the world maybe. And the mundane will take on a new sense of wonder for you. The reflected light that makes up our experience of the visual world will become endlessly fascinating. I've gone through this process sort of myself as I kind of left drawing for a little while after college and then kind of came back to it, and then I started painting. I started doing it professionally, so I started doing it every day. And I can chart my experience over a few years of just becoming increasingly in tune with the visual world around me. So I started drawing really, really regularly. I started becoming very sensitive to people's features, becoming very sensitive to the things that make people look individual. Then I started painting, and I started becoming particularly sensitive to colour and to light. And every stage of this process was it was a step up a ladder, and a ladder to understanding. And you don't really take a step down again. You can leave drawing for a while, but you come back to it, and sort of this interest in the visual world will sort of flood back to you. You'll start sort of obsessing about recreating sort of tonal variations and things. While I was writing this, there were some flowers in front of me, and I just kind of kept looking at them, and I kept sort of drawing bits of them and things like that. You can't help it. It starts to make you interested in what you're seeing again, and that interest kind of builds and it grows into wonderment. And you start to sort of see the world through childlike eyes. You start to see the world fresh, and you'll begin to sort of marvel at its variety. You'll start to really understand its complexity, and you'll start to appreciate the beauty in a lot of the simple things around you. So I'm actually going to get you all to draw now, because otherwise it would seem silly me just talking at you without actually getting you to do something active. So pick up your pencils and paper. I'm not going to get you to draw right this very second. I'm going to waffle at you for a little bit more, but just so you're primed for a moment. We're going to turn this sort of whole room into a big drawing class. I'm not going to give you tuition as such, because that would be contrived. I couldn't, sort of stand here and teach you something that's going to be useful to yourself. What I can do, though, is to present to you some subject matter that you can work from, and hopefully that will be something that will sort of start you maybe on a route to doing a little more drawing. Life drawing, firstly, is a particularly unique experience. It's a very accessible way to get into drawing. There are a lot of classes around about all over the country, all over the world. It's kind of quite an established tradition. Obviously I'm biased because I teach it. But I teach it because it's an excellent way to get back into drawing, and that's what I'm interested in encouraging people to do. So, life drawing deals with the nude human form. It's wonderful because it allows you to see other human beings stripped of their clothes, but free of kind of sexual connotations. So it encourages quite a balanced view of human nudity for a start. It's important to remember that we're all naked underneath our clothes, and I think society kind of imposes quite a self-conscious idea of nudity. I'm not saying well, I mean, I'm all for, David's kind of nude thing on the beach. That sounds great. I'm up for that. If you are David, me and you, maybe we'll start something, kind of one person, a follower, that's all it needs. It'll start to grow. But anyway, right now we're not going to be stripping off. Although I don't know, you probably shouldn't. I wouldn't recommend it for the moment. Leave it until you're out of the theatre. But when a life model sort of poses for a class, they're obviously themselves unclothed, but they're also a figure that sort of represents a shared humanity that kind of taps into that. We all have bodies. So does everyone else. We mostly don't see other people's. It encourages a balanced view of what other people are like and therefore what we're like if we occasionally get to see someone else naked without wanting to have sex with them or without feeling that something inappropriate is going on. So the life drawing studio has to be a kind of a safe environment for everyone. Safe for the life model, but actually more importantly, safe for the draftsman. This room right now is going to become an equally safe environment. So, every time you pick up a pencil, you should be prepared to make yourself vulnerable. Drawing's about understanding the world through a kind of a creative form of play. It's a risk-taking exercise, and you should be prepared to be brave with it. You should be prepared to kind of to really kind of bear yourself when you're doing that drawing. So it might be the model that's unclothed, but it's you that's going to have to actually kind of be the most vulnerable one, really, in your drawing. Everyone in here is in the same boat right now. All of you are going to be drawing, and none of you have any expectations placed upon you. There are no prizes, there's no judgment of you. But if 7-year-olds can do it, and pretty much all 7-year-olds can, then you can. You probably could, at 7 years old, you can do it right now. So if everyone would like to pick up a pencil and a paper and a piece of paper. You've got the boards underneath. If you need a rubber, there's some at the end of the rows, but otherwise most of you don't worry about it. I'm going to introduce Kate to the stage. She's going to kind of come and stand here for me. Kate's going to be our life model for this afternoon. We're going to do one pose. It's just going to be a few minutes, so I urge you to get as much down as possible in this time. I'm going to step aside. I'm going to sort of stop talking. Kate is going to assume one pose, and we'll begin right now. Thank you, Kate. Kate, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. We're going to finish the pose right there. A round of applause for Kate for actually coming up and braving herself in front of you there. Okay, thank you for your silent indulgence. That was wonderful. If you've gained anything from that very, very small introduction to drawing, and I hope you have, please take it further outside of this. Use your other 2 sheets of paper, one to potentially do something kind of today, the second to potentially do something in future. If you could leave the drawing boards and the pencils under your chairs, I'd be very grateful. But the rest of that paper is for you to take home and to do something with. If you'd like to find out more about drawing in your area, just research it, look on Google. But I hope you kind of enjoy your future of drawing. And thank you very much, all of you.